Well, yesterday, the last game of the round was Wesley and Magnus, and they drew. So the question is Wesley's capacity to draw stronger than Magnus's desire or ability to win? That's what we're up against, because I know Wesley will be happy with the draw with the black pieces against the world champion. Get this one out the way. He's already gotten Hikaru out the way. So the deadly Blitz players, if he can put them behind him, then maybe he can start thinking, I need to catch a win or two somewhere. And maybe he's also conserving energy, knowing that it's 18 rounds of Blitz. They've already played a lot of days. So if he can just keep the energy and check out what he needs to do later in the round, then it's okay. But this is really weird. I mean, I've just never seen anything like it. These are straight intentional draws, not trying to win, even out of better positions.
Well, Wesley knows he's not getting a draw against Magnus in the opening. He would have to get like a better position in a middle game or something and then get one. So that makes me think the frequency has gone down a lot. And obviously, if Magnus gives Wesley a big advantage, Wesley's going to go for that win. We know he has great technique. So let's see. Magnus has begun the game with 1d4 and e6, nothing decided yet.
And will we be seeing a Vienna? No, a standard Queen's Gambit declined with Bishop f4, what we saw in London in the World Championship match. And now after knight bd7, bishop e2, he didn't go for the c4, c5 pawn push that everybody has been trying. Instead, going straight into an ending that I have to say Wesley knows inside and out. We've watched Wesley playing the Queen's Gambit accepted endings in a large number of tournaments, and this is really, really tough for White to crack. F2, F3, trying to shorten the diagonal by putting up a picket fence for the pawns on F3 and E4, and immediately you saw Wesley say, hey, wait a minute, I can grab the two bishops here with the move knight H5, B4, A3, knight's a bit offside for the time being, but okay, it's time to capture the bishop and play rook to D8.
And who do you like there?
Well, I think the position's balanced. I'm just, there's a little, I don't know, it's a little funky that both of these pieces are on the C file and they're both undefended. So I'm expecting the knight to come to B5 and the bishop to be able to drop back to F1. So I was expecting previously a move like rook to C8, but bishop F6 was Wesley's choice.
So after bishop F6, what happens if we, okay, yeah.
He wants to play G4.
I want to get knight D7 in somehow, but maybe I need to prep it with rook C1 so that you don't have time for bishop takes C3.
Right. But keep in mind, I do have a threat, Jen. If you play rook c1, I've got g5 on tap. And I'm thinking that if you move your bishop, I'll take it. And then take this knight.
Right. And the thing about playing knight d7 there is that your knight on h5 actually still defends the f6 bishop.
It certainly does.
So that doesn't give me an in-between move that I need.
So that's why we saw the move bishop f6 as this masked threat of g5 lurks in the position.
Yeah, interesting. And I guess this is what you mean by him knowing it inside out, because some of these tactics are a little counterintuitive, sticking your knight on h5 to then be defensive, even though it has no squares, waiting to take on f4. Rook d7 looks attractive here, but it's probably not very good after bishop c8. But all those things need to be checked, right?
Exactly.
He well understands them, and his knight on a6, cuts a strange impression, those two pieces are being so far flung. But the interesting thing is, and by the way, we should note, if White did have a free move, rook ac1, then you'd say White for choice with knight d7, etc. So it's just a tempo, one single tempo giving Black that full equality. But now a big decision by Magnus, bishop taking on a6 and putting his knight onto e4, challenging the bishop. That doesn't seem deadly.
I was about to say, without prejudice, because that knight on a6 was an ugly beast. I was expecting your rook d7, by the way, Jen. instead of the choice of bishop a6. But bishop a6, you give up this, I think it's a good-looking bishop on c4 for an offside knight. And Maurice, you were saying he did it for a very specific purpose, to put a knight on e4.
Yes, and I'm not sure he's after the bishop or if he's after the d6 square. The knight on d6 would dominate the bishop on a6. So b5 could become a threat, forcing you all the way back to c8, and that would disrupt your pieces. So I like this square. The bishop has no squares, no advanced squares. If it wants to find somewhere to go to, like a bishop e2 is clearly random after rook to d2. So interesting idea by Magnus, challenging just very specifically this bishop, which you'd say mobile piece, plenty of options, but a knight on d6 will dominate it. And so rook now to d8, challenging whatever knight shows up on this square. He's probably prepared to play the move bishop to e7. By the way, knight c6 also comes into play as well after this last move. So some interesting possibilities for white now. The knight's dancing while black's pieces are currently a little offside.
So you're thinking knight c6, Maurice?
No, I'm not sure. I just feel like there's some tactics floating here. Something with a knight going to c6 eventually. If you were to trade on d8 at some point and knight c6, that a7 pawn will hang, but I have to worry about rook d7. So how would you do it?
Rook takes, knight c6, rook d7. The immediate knight c6 as a...
Oh, no, you don't have rook d7 because of knight b8. Go try that line. Rook takes d8. Rook takes d8, rook takes d8. Knight c6. And now if rook d7...
Well, sorry, Maurice, the bishop on a1.
Piece is hanging. I need to take that piece first. So let's kill that piece first. Excuse me.
Okay, so we start with knight takes f6. That makes sense.
Yeah, let's kill that. That makes a lot of sense. Take that off.
Take that off. I'm
not sure which one you take with just yet. We'll assume. And now take.
Okay.
No, I wanted to take first. Yes. Take.
I understand. Sorry. So from the start, you check. I take. Check. You take. And you go here.
And now now the knight c6. And if rook d7, then knight b8.
Well, I just don't like leaving my knight away. So we did have a different. Let me just refresh my board. I apologize. After he played rook d8, rook c1, bishop b5. Maybe he
stopping any knight c6 now. And
yeah, maybe knight f6 was actually a much more crucial move than rook c1. Maybe knight f6 was necessary. Magnus, what?
Now the bishop is back and can guard all the squares. Is rook c7? Rook c7 is impossible.
This is a very unusual checkmating pattern. That's not one you see every single day.
The reverse of a checkmate we saw Nakamura fall into yesterday. Rook f8 mate.
Guys, Magnus has wasted a lot of time coming up with these last couple of moves, and he hasn't really found the real point exactly of this position. And he is now at 26 seconds on the clock.
Wow!
To Wesley's 3:42. This is not the Magnus Carlsen we're used to. 2 games in a row, he's been causing issues for himself, and now a third game as well.
Yeah, that's right. He's been very slow, but I wonder if he also thinks that due to the drawish tendencies Wesley's shown the last few rounds, that even if he gets down low on time, if his position is okay, he might get a draw. I don't know. I don't know if he's consciously thinking that, but I think it could be the case.
Wow, I don't know. H4, by the way, that was a very big time move. It's strange. You're just getting your bishop away from out of the way of the f7 pawn, so you can play f6, drive this knight on e5, which is a very, very powerful piece, and also making White's king. White's king isn't making a beeline to the center anytime soon. After bishop h,
we saw king g2 rapidly by Magnus as he needs to
Who's
now.
down on time?
f5 played by Wesley.
That was necessary
F6.
because he couldn't move his rook. He couldn't move his rook off the back row because there were still mating problems on the back rank because the bishop stood on the h4 square. And now f5, knight g5 instantly. His king is ready to run to the h3 square. So that will be okay for him. Black still has issues himself on the back rank. It's not like his rook can leave because they have 7 squares covered. So rook to c8 would be fatal. So at the moment, Wesley's spending some time and he has taken on g4, capture back.
Whoa.
And now the check. All right, here we go. Check to the king. Seems like his king can go to h3 to chase the bishop with a mate threat on the back rank. Bishop g5, yes. So there was no mate because of rook d8. And now king to f8. Now rook could go to c7 and both rooks on the 7th rank. Whose rook is better? What is this about?
In principle, I like the rook and bishop versus rook and knight combination, as I mentioned on a couple of broadcasts.
Whoa.
To me, this knight on e5 is huge.
With
and
G6
I want to play
we
rook
asked.
e2. Oh,
Rook e2,
rook
g6.
e2, g6.
You don't touch no knight.
I was about to say, oh no, he blundered the knight. No, you that move g6 has to be accompanied by the, oh no, the panic-stricken look. You're right. Rook takes e5, g takes h7. Oops.
That's always a funny little pattern, yeah. Oh, but that's so funny for the person who gets queened on.
Well,
so what can we do here? We can't take the knight. We can
I'm not a big fan of h6. That pawn on g6 really
take it.
Worries me. But if I take it, knight takes king g8, rook takes a7. I have lost a pawn, but at least I'm not in any kind of mating threats. White's for choice. I didn't see the move at g6. I just thought that Black was about to play rook e2, drive the knight away, and was going to be fine.
h5? h5? That looks...
Idea of
what?
Rook check? What?
Well, you mean if we take, then we can play rook takes e5, right?
Correct.
So we have
I just played knight d7. He had no time on his clock. But knight d7 looks somehow like it fixes Black's problems if he can kill this knight and then get rid of this g pawn.
It's not so easy because this g6 pawn is really menacing. If I go bishop takes d7, rook takes d7, then you're always going to hit me with a check, and then you're going to take this guy, and my king could be in a mating.
What do you mean? Why can't I just take on g4, take on h2, and how do you get me? What?
So bishop takes d7, rook takes d7, takes
Whoa! King up. I mean, this knight b6. What is going on this board? Magnus has now cleaned up everything on the queen side. He is currently up 2 pawns. With 14 seconds left, Wesley with 39 seconds. Do you guys know what's going on? I mean,
he's up 1 pawn. First of all, he's up 1 pawn.
What do you mean? There's 4 on the board and 2
Whoa,
from
no.
left.
I mean, at the point you said that he was up 2 pawns. Then when he played rook takes a7, that was when he went up 2 pawns. But then
I had seen that on the screen. That move had been played on the screen, and now we're back. He's just up 2 pawns. Magnus is winning this game.
No, rook takes Maurice. Rook takes b4 is an easy draw. Rook and knight versus rook.
What do you mean?
Rook takes b4.
You mean? But he's got an h pawn.
Oh, he's got an h pawn. Yeah. There's an h pawn on the board.
There's an h pawn. This is.
Oh my god.
This is work, but I like White's chances for sure.
For sure.
And Wesley's shaking his head. Those draws he took when we come back to haunt him right now as he is down a knight. That's a simple end game for Magnus.
Sure.
I mean, maybe not simple, but Magnus now has 20 seconds. Wesley down to 10 seconds and shaking his head yet again, trying to figure out what he's going to do. 5 he's going down. Has he moved? Is it me, or has he gone zeros?
He might
Let's
have
see.
lost on time. Let's find out because they're still sitting there at the board.
Why are they
Well,
still
Wesley's
sitting? No, it looks like there was a
No.
lag.
Wesley.
It looks like there was a lag on
There
our
was a
screen.
last night. Yeah,
So
because
plenty of
I
moves
saw
played.
By the way,
Wesley
Nakamura won against Dominguez, so he's climbing up the score table.
up to third place is Hikaru, and there you see the head shake by Wesley as he recognizes he's losing.
He's thinking about
After-
resigning, it looks like. I mean, he does look very unhappy. You don't see Wesley as emotive. I mean, he's got a great smile, but during the games, he's usually pretty steady.
Exactly.
But this is very
Very
disappointing.
good. Yeah. The knight on e4 is just monsters as the king is now ready to go king g5 and king, well, okay, rook a7. This guy
Sure,
on.
you can't play. It doesn't look like you can play rook b4 because of rook. At least rook a6. Actually, yeah, rook a6 check would have chased you back. He's played king to d5, challenging the knight, but this knight can just move. Now it's on a
King
g5. And
f5? Okay. I was like,
what do you do? G7 is hanging. I mean, just give me your pawn.
Yeah.
Thank
exactly.
you. And
He's
get
done
behind
it.
the other
King4.
one. Your king is cut off. Your rook has no chance of helping. And knight e6 with the knight coming back to f4. h6 is going to happen as well. This is over.
Yep.
This is now easily over. And Magnus just waltzing slowly but surely. Now king f3. There goes your e-pawn. Everybody's defended. And we're looking at a mate.
Yep.
That's
wow. Impressive technique there by